Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic medium, a spirit navigator. Today, I'm happy to have Dabney Lawless, one of my favorite astrologers, on the screen. And let me tell you why, because whenever you see us together, you know things are about to get real. Because Dabney brings it. She helps us understand what's happening behind the scenes. Astrology is so important for you guys like me that don't really understand it. I can just tell you that it is truly impactful on your life. I'm telling you without a doubt. So, what we're going to be talking about today is how the astrology is impacting the felon, his VP, and Elon. Because these three seem to be duking it out right now, even though Vance doesn't look like he is sitting in the whatever, what is that, catbird seat is what the spirit guides
Yes.
are saying.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the catbird seat just waiting for his chance to pounce, right? So
hmm
what is going to happen and why is it going to happen? That's what Dabney's here to help us with. Thank you so much, Dabney, for joining us.
Thanks, Susan, for having me. I always love coming on. And so today we're recording this on July 7th, and Uranus has just gone into Gemini. And that is the big overarching theme I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about the, entirety of the astrology of this time and politics, but I did want to just kind of say that that is the big focus of our talk today. So Gemini, Uranus, what does this mean? Okay, so anytime, and astrologers have been talking about this for a really long time. So what I'm about to say is not news to a lot of people that have been following astrology. Okay. Every time Uranus enters the sign of Gemini, the United States has gone to war. Now we had the Revolutionary War was Uranus and Gemini. The Civil War was Uranus and Gemini, and then World War II. So the major conflicts that decided who we were going to become, that kind of were our evolution, happened under Uranus and Gemini. Okay. And so I don't say that to scare you. I actually say that I'm actually looking forward to Uranus and Gemini. I think that there's some good things that are going to come out of this. This whole year, when I've been on here on my own channel, I talk about, and every astrologer that I'm sure you're following, if anyone is an astrology fan, is talking about what a big year this is. And this year is the year that all the outer planets changed signs in 1 year. And that's very rare. That has not happened in our lifetime. And this is the kind of final piece, or one of the final pieces to drop into place. And the United States has been through a Pluto return, we've been through a Chiron return, and we're getting ready for a Uranus return. All right, I'm going to back up and tell you, what does all of that mean? Because that sounds like a lot of astrology mumbo jumbo. Uranus is change. Uranus is progress. It often comes with like lightning strike. It's unexpected. It's definitely something that shakes things up. Okay. It's earthquakes. It breaks up the status quo. It brings in kind of a new world, a new way of looking at things. Okay. So the United States Sibley chart has Uranus in Gemini at 6 or 7 degrees of Gemini. Okay. So right now we've just entered into Gemini. Now, every time there are these wars, so we say like, oh, every time the United States, Gemini, we go to war. Why? That's the bigger question that I think doesn't get talked about a lot. It's almost like, oh, well, that's what happens, right? Like there's some like hand of fate that says it's Uranus and Gemini. So now you have to go to war. Sorry, I have a cold. Every time Uranus goes into Gemini, it's preceded by Uranus and Taurus. Okay, so each one of those times, Uranus was in Taurus. What does that mean? Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is about money. It's about resources, material goods. It's about the earth. It's about agriculture. It's about structures. It can be very stubborn. It's a fixed sign. Okay. It has to do with survival. It's about food and resources. Okay, so money, anything that makes you feel safe and secure is Taurus. Okay, especially in a capitalistic society like the United States, money is a big one. Okay, but food is a big one too, right? We need food to survive, water resources. So here you have Uranus, and we've been in Uranus and Taurus since 2018. Okay, to 2018. Uranus moved into Taurus. If you think about the big things that have happened since 2018, one of the biggest ones is these big climate change disasters, fires, floods, hurricanes, right? We've had some of the biggest natural disasters. It feels like we're almost exhausted already by the fact that there's just one after the other. They used to be kind of spaced out, right? Like you'd have one and then like a few years later, maybe you'd have something, but now it's like there's so many of them and it's coming so fast, right? So that's part of Uranus and Taurus, is this sense of like people feeling like their safety is at risk. Now, the last time Uranus was in Taurus was the Great Depression. It was also the time of the rise of fascism in Europe and dictators all over the world. There was the Dust Bowl. So there was kind of this rise of authoritarians and authoritarian ideals, because when your safety and security feels kind of rocked and you feel like your survival is at risk, you want answers. You want somebody who's going to come in and say, I'm going to fix that for you. I alone can take care of this. Right. So if we go back to Germany in the 30s, they had bread lines and they were paying like $40 for a loaf of bread. Right. They were feeling that food insecurity. They were feeling this fear of survival. And here comes this person who says it's their fault, but I'm going to take care of it. And it's very attractive for people to glom onto that. One of the things that I want people to understand as I'm talking about this is when I talk about a specific sign like Taurus, I'm not talking about your birthday falls and you're a Taurus. When I'm talking about collective transits, I'm talking about the general zeitgeist of the masses. And I think we can all agree that consciousness is not at its highest when you get a group of people together. You know, we may be working on our consciousness, but we have to look at the masses. So when you look at the collective outer planet transits, a lot of times it reflects in a more unconscious expression of that particular sign. So if I'm being critical of Taurus, please understand I'm not critical of a Taurus birthday. It's not a person. Your birth chart is very different than collective astrology. So that's a little caveat that I have to make. You know, you're not necessarily stubborn and fixed and, obsessed with agriculture, right? So the rise of these sort of existential crises, it's not uncommon that there was a famine or plagues. We had COVID during Uranus and Taurus. So there's this destabilization, this fear that people want to deny and they want to blame, they want an answer. Okay. So now this has happened throughout every single time. If there's some kind of insecurity, even like the taxation before the revolution, there's, let's blame the British. Like, you know what I mean? We're angry at the British. Like, we need revolution, right? And like that may be actually very true. There was existential crisis there, but they were fearful that they were going to be taxed into oblivion. They were fearful that they were fearful of that kind of rise of authoritarianism coming out of England. So here we've had this real embrace of much more authoritarian ideals under Uranus and Taurus. Now, Uranus moved into Gemini, which we can all celebrate. But what that means is there is new ideas, there's fresh energy, there is a breaking free and saying no more. Gemini is about ideas. Gemini is less concerned with kind of like, do I have enough to eat? Gemini is more like, what can we think of as a solution? Gemini is much more interested in transportation. Some of the themes around Gemini are like transportation. It's around new ways of governing. It's around youth. Okay. It's around, I think that there will be kind of potentially a change in our banking system. So there's all different kind of things that are coming, but it's really a time where it's about new ideas. Now, you couple that with Pluto and Aquarius, which we have talked about on this channel. Pluto and Aquarius is power to the people. So we have this power to the people rising up simultaneously when you have people at a breaking point where they no longer want to just live in fear and look to someone to fix it. They want new ideas. They want fresh technology. There's new things that are coming that are going to be real game changers that we can't predict right now because it is so unpredictable. So Susan, you want to weigh in? I know I've been doing a lot of talking here.
No, I'm on the edge of my seat. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, 1850 to 1859 was Uranus in Taurus, and we had a financial crisis during that time. We also had the Dred Scott decision, right? So we had these big kind of regressive things happening at the Supreme Court level, even back then with Uranus and Taurus. Taurus, again, collectively, it's a control. It wants to control things. It wants someone in control. Like Gemini is not about control. Gemini is about experimentation. So I've always said with Pluto and Aquarius, one of the things that we're going to see is, Pluto and Aquarius Pluto in any sign, you see the shadow. And Aquarius rules technology. So one of the things that we're going to be dealing with Pluto and Aquarius is the darker side of technology. That is just part of what this transit that's going to be here for 20 years is about. But now we have Uranus moving into Gemini, which anytime Uranus is in Gemini, there is tremendous breakthroughs in technology. There's, just game changing, like industrial revolution, like the world changes kind of technology. And we're already starting to see that, obviously, with AI. But will AI be what we think it's going to be? Will it be this kind of dystopian fear that we are, it's really fascinating to me because the people that are pushing AI are also the people that are kind of pushing this very dystopian reality onto us and kind of a dystopian version of reality, which is very Neptune and Pisces. Okay. So I know I'm juggling a lot of balls here. So if at any point I sound like I'm starting to sound a little too confusing and going to too many different things, you tell me, okay?
You're almost there. Link, why did you go to Neptune and Pisces? What made you go? Because we're talking about AI, we're talking about Gemini, we're talking about Taurus, and we're talking about the control, we're talking about dystopia, we're talking about the dark side. And I would just say that everything has a light and a dark side. When it comes to AI, the spirit guides tell me it's much like when you were traveling everywhere by a horse, and all of a sudden this car goes by that's spewing stuff, and you're like, that's terrible, and guess what? We're all driving cars. So I think it's really about understanding that nothing is inherently good or bad, but how do we put guardrails on it? How do we understand it? A car can be a terrible thing, right? We have speed limits, we have protections. We just need to go through these new technologies. I think being plugged in with our electeds and saying, because we have this power to the people energy, and we need to use it, and we need to say, No, we want to know what AI is doing. We want this, we want that. So yeah. But how did you go from AI to Neptune and Pisces?
Thank you for slowing me down and telling me where I needed to back up. So thank you. Okay, let me back up a little bit more and say all these outer planets are switching over this year, but then they're moving back in the fall. Okay, and I can give you exact dates if you like, or you can put it in the comments section before they fully go forward in 2026. So 2025 is really a preview, okay, where we get a preview of what's to come. And there's been some ugliness in the previews. I am not saying that, but I think the Uranus in Gemini is a potential bright spot because we've seen some kind of harsh stuff, but some of the harsh stuff we're seeing, I think, is a holdover to what we have been under for many years. And it's kind of like we have to then, when we get this new, so if I go back to Uranus and Taurus, it's only today Uranus moved into Gemini. That big ugly bill was signed in Uranus and Taurus, okay? So the consequences of the things that have taken place are going to have to be revisited in the fall, when everything except for Pluto and Aquarius, because Pluto and Aquarius is there. So this common thread that's going to keep throughout everything is Pluto and Aquarius, the darker side of technology, but also revolution and power to the people and kind of a more democratic, a rise of democratic ideals. Okay, so that thread will be there underneath it all. But people in the fall are going to have to re-examine what they have signed up for. So Saturn moves back into Pisces. Neptune moves back into Pisces. Uranus in November will move back into Taurus. Okay. And so we are kind of having to realize that 2025 is this like, here's what you're going to get. Oh, that's what I signed up for. Maybe I didn't want that. There's an opportunity to do things different, to break things apart, to kind of re-examine the things we signed up for before 2026, when all those planets move forward and they stay in those signs until like 2030s. Okay, except for Saturn, which is only, like a year or more, but you get the point. So does that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, the retrogrades. What she's saying is all these outer planets are going retrograde, and that's unusual. She said at the very beginning of the thing, this is rare and unusual. And the thing about retrogrades, you get to go back. So there is this window of opportunity, you guys, maybe around between now and November, depending, where everybody, not you, me, but also our leaders, can go, oh, wait a minute, this didn't work out. Like, this is not at all. Like, I didn't think this would happen, or I didn't think they would take it this far. You may see redoubled efforts towards reining them in, or redoubled efforts towards something new, because you're going to go back. So there's an opportunity to have a redo.
Exactly. And so Uranus at the 29th degree of Taurus, which we just had this past weekend, the July 4th weekend, anytime you're in the 29th degree, the last degree, it intensifies things, and it really brings home like what a transit is about. And so Uranus and Taurus, we talked about climate change and natural disasters. And we had this horrible flood in Texas on the 29th degree.
There's one happening in North Carolina too. They're simultaneously happening in different parts of the country.
So then when you get a sign, a planet moving into a new sign, you also get a preview of what's to come as well. So I wake up this morning when Uranus had just entered Gemini, and I see a certain someone who makes electric cars bashing and saying someone's in the EPSTIEN file.
Wow.
And this is like all over my feed is this kind of revisiting and people being like, yeah, why has nobody been arrested? Like, so here we have two people that were almost like twins in a way, right? Co-presidents. A lot of people were calling him the shadow president for the first
Oh my
few
God, it's
months.
true.
And
Yeah,
Gemini's the twins, right?
that's true.
And here we have these just two incredibly narcissistic people who now are like trying to take each other down, and we also have that certain car maker announcing a new political party. So Uranus and Gemini is going to be wild. There is going to be so much unexpected, but I fully believe that the information that's going to come out is they're going to like start to just continue to take one another down. Like that, I don't think this is over. And I know that you've heard the word ruination from your spirit guides when it comes to a certain car maker. And I definitely on an intuitive level and on an astrological level see the same thing. Like, I don't feel as though that's going to be necessarily successful, but I do believe that it is going to help bifurcate what the party.
The party, you don't feel the party is going to be successful. Okay. But
No.
but
And
you
I don't
think
think the car maker is going to be successful at all. Like, I don't think that that is going to be the emergence. If anything, someone else, there are going to be people coming in that we don't have any idea. Like, they're going to come out of left field. Like, whoever heard of Mondani, right? Like, all of a sudden, like all these young, new upstarts are going to start to lead. They're going to like come out of nowhere. And that's what we're going to start to see, because I know it's kind of like there's a tiredness of Uranus and Taurus, because it's like we've been through so much. Like, so many people say like, well, why aren't people out in the streets? And it's like, first of all, we are. Second of all, even if we're not, we're very tired. It's been a decade of wearing us down, that we may not have the same energy we did in 2016, because we have seen the lack of response from our leaders to help us when we are in the streets. And now we see the lack of media coverage. My husband had no idea that that was the largest protest. The No Kings protest was the largest protest in United States history. And like the amount of coverage of it was not commiserate.
No.
Right.
No.
And so when our institutions have continuously failed us, that's part of this Uranus and Taurus and the remainder of Pluto and Capricorn. So these are these very earthy, fixed signs. And now we're moving into like very energetic, like new energy. And we're moving into a time where there's going to be, and what I was trying to get at with the AI thing is we actually have no idea what AI is going to look like. We don't. We don't know what positives or negatives. We have a narrative currently, but I feel like that narrative is coming from people who are very obsessed with the apocalypse and Armageddon. And that is where I echo back to Neptune and Pisces. Because Neptune in Pisces, which we've had since 2011, has been very apocalyptic. I mean, how many zombie movies have we all had to sit through, right? Yeah. Like, everything is about the end of the world. I think this end of the world feeling by 2026 will be behind us. Right now, we still have so much fear about what's to come because we still have to go through the fall, where I think a lot of the final energy is going to dissipate. But the new technologies, the new ideas, the new leadership that is going to be emerging, I think is actually going to bring us into the future. We're not going back to the past. That's over. That's it. We would like things to go back to normal, what we kind of experienced in the 90s and the 2000s and even the 2010s, where it felt a little bit more just like, oh, I could just live my life and not care about all this stuff so much, right? That's over for now. But, and I'm not saying it's all going to be rosy, because, they still have $170 billion allocated to ICE, right?
Yeah.
So there is going to be, there's going to be big things that are coming that we're going to have to get through. However, I think there is definitely a light at the end of the tunnel, and there will be something new that comes out of it. I think we could have a new constitution that is better than the one that we have now, that's improved in some ways. So there is going to be a transformative time over the next several years. This is a question I get always. When will this be over? That's a question I always get. I can't give you an exact time, but I can tell you that the astrology calms down by the 2030s. So by 2030, I know, but if you think about that, that's 5 years from now. Okay.
Okay, 5 years.
All right. And I'm not saying it's going to be this intense for the next 5 years. I actually don't think it will be. I think we're actually past.
I think we're at the most intense part right now, personally.
I agree.
But there is a period of rebuilding. We have to rebuild it. That's going to take effort, and that's why we have power to the people.
Right. So we have to look at the fact that Pluto in Aquarius, which began with Luigi, is this 20-year cycle. The taking back of our power they're not going to just give it back. We have to take it back. But we are going to be it's going to be easier to take it back because this new leadership is going to be emerging. I think that the old leadership that we've been dealing with has been really beat up by the current state of things. I think that it's very much Charlie Brown with the football and Lucy. It's been, a decade of that. And really trying to take the high road, really wanting to do the right thing, but not having the tools to take things on in a way that was successful for us. And I think that tide is going to turn. That's what I really genuinely believe that. Now, Saturn and Neptune are currently in Aries, okay? And Saturn and Neptune in Aries, on the downside, is this, alligator Alcatraz. It's police state. It's, that stuff's real too, okay? However, there is a higher expression of that, which we're seeing too, which is also the emergence of new leaders. It's accountability for bad behavior by men, a self-reflection about how did I get here, a re-examining of why I voted the way I did. We're seeing that all over the place. I mean, that's not... I think that, how exhausted do you get if you ever open the comments section on some of these stories? Like, it's exhausting to see how much hatred and anger that people are spewing, right? And we know that a lot of that is based in fear. And so that fear has coming out in really like toxic ways. And I think that there's going to be a healthier expression of that. People are going to be less afraid. I think in 2026, it's kind of like if you revisit the revolution, the Civil War, World War II, heroes emerged, right? This is where our heroes came from. This is where we rewrote our mythologies. This is where we, emerge stronger, and we, expose the emperor who has no clothes. So any questions on any of that? Is that a little too esoteric, or does that make sense?
No, I would just ask about the war energy. So wars can be a war of ideas. It can be a war of words. It can be a war of a Cold War. I would draw your guys' attention to the fact that we sent a BOMB to Iran. And that did not turn into a war. It did not. And it went during this time when it really could have, right? When it was really ripe for that. And Iran has recently said, well, we are going to respond by publicizing some, dirt or some secrets that we have. There could be a war of like intelligence. So if we're in this war energy, how do you feel, or how do you see that potentially manifesting?
Well, I think it's very interesting because you listen to some astrologers, and this is where everyone's like, you don't want to be biased, but everybody has their own perspective. And I listen to so many different astrologers, and astrology is not an exact science. And you listen to some, and it's like, we're going to war, and it could be nuclear, right? I do not believe that, by the way. Okay. Then you listen to some people, and it's like, it's an awakening of consciousness. And I don't see that either. Okay. I'm much more somebody that likes to look at historical patterns and like, look at what's happening, open my eyes and see what's happening around me. And so to me, the war is going to involve technology. I think it's not necessarily going to be a bloody war. I think it is a war of information. I think it's a war of truth versus illusion. And you have a choice to make. And I see, as Uranus moves into Gemini, as we get into 2026, I see much less of a left versus right and a top versus bottom, or bottom versus top, because of the Pluto and Aquarius. You can't just look at one thing, like one outer planet, and take it in isolation. You have to look at all of the outer planets, which are the collective planets. Okay. They're the ones that are affecting us on a collective level. And what I see is, one, we know we're going to be dealing with the darker side of technology, Pluto and Aquarius. We know that people are going to rise up against controls. That's Pluto and Aquarius as well. That's the power to the people. We have Neptune in Aries. Okay. So that's a glamorization of war. That's a glamorization of heroes. That's a glamorization of bravery and courage. But it's also a glamorization of individual choices and of being high integrity. Okay. Like a return to integrity. All right. And it's also realistic. It's like, it's tangible. What do I have in front of me? All right. Uranus is moving out of Taurus, which we talked about can be very scary times, and the rise of authoritarianism. And in the past, in each of the instances, the wars that were fought were basically crushing a form of authoritarianism. You think about the Revolutionary War was crushing the authoritarianism coming out of England. The Civil War was crushing authoritarianism that came out of slave owners. Then, we crushed the Nazis in the 30s or the 40s. Okay. So now we've evolved. So you look, revolution, civil war, foreign war, those are all very different. So it doesn't repeat itself exactly the same way. But what it repeats is it is crushing the thing that was crushing us. And so that's what it's going to do. It's going to bring new energy and new ideas. It's like we're going to wake up and think differently. It's not going to be, I'm going to write a strongly worded letter and hope it does something. Like something new, like some new candidates are just going to pop up. And that's why I think the America Party that is being proposed right now by a certain car maker is a dud, because that feels very hackneyed. It feels like the same thing that we've been doing, right? It's kind of just an extension of the red hats, but it will divide the red hats. And so there's going to be all sorts of unexpected information. There's going to be a war of information. Could this war be more global, where we do have, electricity comes into play? Electricity was invented in Uranus and Gemini. So here, the electrical grids are a big thing that people talk about, like sabotage. So there are things that could happen that don't necessarily look anything like the things that we've been through in the past. Every single one of those things we've been through in the past looked incredibly different from the one before. And here we've got all these new technologies that are about to be coming out that we have no idea what it's about. But and people say, well, I think it's about like a civil war. I don't think so. I actually think we're going to see more and more people waking up, and we're going to find our commonality again. And I think the narrative, and this is where the Pisces thing that I was talking about, the apocalypse, I think that's going to fade because AI is incredibly resource dependent. At a time when we're dealing with these climate change disasters, we're going out and like taking, like making so I can just type in something faster, and like the data centers, the amount of water that it takes and the resources that and the energy that it takes, there either has to be a solution for that or that can implode upon itself. So I'm a little leery about saying that there's some sort of apocalyptic ending to all of this because I feel like there's a much more hopeful ending to all of this. We have to find the inner courage and bravery and intelligence to like do it.
And that's what these young people are going to help us do. Like you said, Madami. I mean, these people are going to, and that's very Uranian too, coming out of nowhere, right? Like this burst on the scene is very Uranian energy. So I feel like we are going to have that. But I think there's going to be a little struggle, because there's not a peaceful transition, in my opinion, between the people that have the power and the people who are saying you're misusing your power. So I think there's going to be some scuffle there between those two energies. And I think that for a while there, the robber barons, if they'll do our bidding, talk about Mark Cuban, right? Like he's saying, hey, I want to help you, Mr. Elon, I want to help you do this. We may find strange bedfellows here and there, but overall, I think that's just during this period of transition. What I see is what you see with these young people. I see these young people coming up and every color, every shape, every sexuality, none of that matters. There's this organic, clean, clear, really true energy with these younger people. And that once they come on the scene, I just feel like everything else falls away. It's like when you see truth and you know truth and you can no longer consider this other option.
So there has been a really great propaganda campaign, and the ours have been really much better at messaging, and we all know this. They've like understood how to play the game much better than the Democrats. There's just no doubt, in the sense that they have all these Spanish speaking propaganda networks that we don't have. And I was watching this new he's the largest TikTok Spanish speaking channel, and he was on the Bulwark, and he was talking about how this happened, and how half of Latinos ended up voting in a lot of ways against their own people. And he was really talking about how it's unfortunate and it's sad that they were lied to, but sometimes people need to touch the flame. They have to be burned in order to realize, like, I should not have done that. I will not do that again. And we have that happening. Okay. The more they crack down, and I do believe there is going to be more of a crackdown. I do believe it's like you said, we're in the intensity right now. I do believe that this intensity. So I'm not a predictive astrologer, but if I was to predict things, when I went in and I looked at what, I looked at the car maker, and I looked at the felon, and I looked at the, hillbilly. And what I saw, like, astrologically with this Uranus energy, and that's all I looked at. Okay. So I took that in a vacuum. But one of the things that really stood out to me was that the hillbilly has his Uranus conjunct his North Node. Now, for those of you who have watched me before, I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I pay very close attention to that. So what that tells me is something in the 2027, 2028 timeframe is going to pull him into his destiny, and it's in the 10th house. So it's very much for him, like he's being challenged and asked to be his true authentic self. We don't know his true authentic self.
Does he?
I don't know that I think right now, I think that the true authentic self that we know of this person is very opportunistic.
Yeah, power hungry. Yeah.
Will say and do whatever he has to do to survive. Okay. So I could see a world. This is, again, I am not psychic, but I could see a world where the other two are no longer a factor for however that happens, like one ruination, the other, just no longer there. That could be lots of different ways that can be taken down. But that person I see emerges until the 2028 election when I do believe we will have an election. And I think that will be part of the rebuilding toward 2030. So it's like after the revolution, it wasn't like, we've all seen Hamilton, right? We all went to school. Like, it wasn't like suddenly like everything was peachy. There was like the rebuilding phase and the figuring it out phase. And, Europe had to rebuild after World War II. So I feel like there's this kind of culmination in 2026, 2027, where he may emerge as the person that is leading us, but he is not going to be as extreme as what we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
And it opens up, and people will be tired of it and ready for fresh new leadership by 2028. So that would be if I had to put a guess on a timeline, that would be my guess. But I do think there is something really positive about breaking free and taking action, and like some exciting new things coming into being, because Gemini is youth and it is energy and it is fun. We have not had any fun. I have not had fun.
No, this has not been fun.
No. So I think there's fun on the horizon. Like there's kind of that almost like an action movie, like where it's like stressful, but like it's kind of fun. Like you're like, oh my God, did you see what he just did? Like, oh, that's crazy, So that's kind of my
So when does that happen? When does the fun happen? Or the rebuilding?
I think the rebuilding doesn't really start until 2028. And maybe in 4 months, the cracks will be so great that the dam will break. And that dam breaking then causes new chaos that we have to deal with that can then emerge into the rebuilding phase. But right now, we have very little in the way of tangible pathways to rebuilding something new yet. I mean, we don't have control of anything. Now, I think that we will regain control in the midterms. Like, I think all of that is there, but it's bigger than that, right? Like, when we don't have the Supreme Court, when things are, going the way they're going currently, I think we missed some opportunities to rein things in to make this less of a bumpy ride. So this is a pretty rocky ride. And so what can people do personally? Okay, that's the question. One of the things that I'm telling every single one of my clients is figure out what is your purpose in this world. What are you here to do? What is your North Node? Okay, who are you? The toughest times in life are the times when we fall back on ourselves and we really realize what we're made of. In a lot of ways, the easy times are not the times in life where we see, like if I ask you what were the things that changed the direction of your life, you're not going to just say the easy times. You're going to say the things that like pulled the rug out from under you, that you had to pick yourself up and really figure out who you are. And I think getting an astrology reading, learning your own chart, figuring out where your North Node is, what are you here to do? What's your special power? Because everybody's different. So I could say like meditate, but that might be terrible advice for some people. Like some people may need to like get out in the streets. Some people may need to take a complete break from everything and go meditate and pray. There might be some people that their whole life should be dedicated to service and like they're supposed to be like working with food banks, right? So like what is your particular path during this time? I think it's going to be illuminated. And the more you can illuminate your own path and figure out who you are, what you're here to do, what's your path, the happier you'll be during this time. You're going to know that you're doing the best you can. I'm not a great predictive astrologer. So, if everyone watches this, if all you want me to tell you is exactly what's going to happen, I'm sorry, but I'm really good at helping people figure out what their special gifts and talents are and
Perfect.
looking at the patterns and what your role is in all of these
Right.
patterns, right?
And when you have a sense of purpose, you're
Purpose.
not depressed. You're not, look, we all, for whatever reason, she can help you with that. We incarnated during this time. Like those people that incarnated during the Civil War, those people that incarnated during World War I, World War II, they chose that time. So having your purpose, I think, is so important because we tend to worry about the world. We tend to worry about our neighbors, and in reality, you can only do so much. But where all your power is right here with you, right? So if you figure out what makes you tick, who you are, what you're supposed to be doing at this time, then you can do something and you'll really feel better. You'll really feel
I
better.
think that, one thing I can predict is our nervous systems are all out of whack.
Wow, I'm telling you.
And so themes for Uranus and Gemini, I did a whole video on specifically Uranus, Gemini that was not focused purely on politics on my channel. And, there's going to be a total change in media. The legacy media is going to completely crumble. I really believe the rise in alternate media is going to accelerate. There's going to be all these changes. And I love that you said the thing about the, horse and buggy and all of a sudden a car drove by, because I used that exact same analogy.
Did you really?
Like,
That's
yeah,
good.
right. It's like you can't imagine what's coming until it's here.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, right? I mean,
Right.
so we can idealize the past, but in the past, like children died, like women died in childbirth at like astronomical rates. We didn't have birth control. Like, I mean, think about the past, right? Like there's these advancements. We lived in the dark. We didn't have vaccines. Now, there are some people trying to take us back to some of these things, but that's not going to happen. The other thing that I can tell you as, as someone who studies people as well as the stars, in this country, I was talking over breakfast the other day with a friend of mine because I had just been to Europe, and we were talking about how they have so much more of a sense of community, but they also have like much more of a distrust in some ways, like if you're an outsider, and that's from generations, hundreds of years of wars in Europe, like, and the other, right? But here in the United States, we are very freedom loving. The people that came over to this country were the rebels. They were the people that wanted to pursue religious freedom. They were the people that wanted to pursue financial wealth and make their mark on the world. Like, we are these very independent, pioneering people that don't like to be controlled. And so part of this rebellion that's coming is the more they try to clamp down, the more we are going to fight back. So far people are like, well, how come we haven't had much of a fight and stuff? Fortunately or unfortunately, we seem to be a people as very independent people and maybe somewhat selfish in some ways because we live in a society from the time we're born where it's a little survival of the fittest. We learn early on that money is what's important and you have to do what you have to do to take care of yourself, to survive. Like there's kind of some ethos in like our mythologies of how we've been brought up that also goes back to our family lineages. And so I think there is this sense of like, oh yeah, they're not going to tell me what to do. Like that's masked people roaming the streets. That's not going to play well.
It's not going to play out. It's not going to last. I'm telling you, it's not going to last because people are fighting back. Actually, they just started fighting back. So that's
where I think the wiffle waffle hillbilly, the like, who is this guy, slippery, whatever. if he, let's say he's like, I know everyone's going to be like, I don't want that. I don't either. Please understand that. But let's just go there for a second. I could also see him being very wiffle waffly to then like take the reins and get things back under control in a more positive way too.
I
And
saw
there's
that. Yep.
not the cult of personality around this person.
Yep.
The cult is the most dangerous thing right now. And Gemini has been a cult buster. Gemini, Uranus and Gemini, that's when we won World War II. That was a cult buster right there.
I love that it's a cult buster. And I've seen him taking office and then dialing everything back. And what I said was, but we've already moved the goalpost so far to the right. You can bring it back 50%, make big changes. I mean, like, wow, this is big. But we're still really so far to the right from Biden, but not in crazy land. So I think that that's the first thing he'll do. Look, folks, I'm voice of reason. I've got this. So I think the first thing he's going to do is try to win over hearts and minds by reducing and calming everything down. So I don't think he's a good guy. I'm not in favor of him at all. But this is what we're saying that he will do. And in that way, we can all catch a breath anyway, right? Like, so that's.
And this is just one scenario. Okay. So again, this is a scenario that I can imagine given the astrological signatures. Okay. No matter what, the more general thing I can promise is maybe some tough times with something really good at the end, like a reward at the end of this. And do I think it's going to be forever fascism in this country? I just don't see
I don't either.
So that was kind of the like, okay, well, at least this is progress. This is progress in my mind. So I'm excited about Uranus and Gemini. And I think it's an opportunity for people to wake up, break out of the cult mentality and pick a new side. And that can happen as early as, January 2026 or before. So I think we're going to start to see more and more people waking up, the cults dissipating. And then once that happens, we get a toehold. We start to bring things back to normal. And when I mean normal, I mean like not this chaos where, we just like our hearts in the morning are like about to explode with stress, right? Like it's more like, okay, we can deal with this. Now what's next? So, and the other thing, like I said on my channel too, like in my Uranus and Gemini, it's like, this is, we have to look at the hero's journey, right? Like we're being called to be our own hero, like, Frodo and Luke Skywalker and, the people that have, are our icons and our heroes that have risen up against the forces of evil. I think that's like this iconic thing. And that's also Neptune in Aries. Like, I just don't think it's going to be as bad as it is right now.
I don't either. Neptune and Aries. Aries is the I am, right? Aries is action. So yeah, I think it's a game changer, is what I just heard. Thank you so much, Dabney. This has been fascinating and helpful. And I also want to tell everybody that all her contact information is going to be down below. She has a YouTube channel. She has a website and she offers classes. And I want to tell you, since you stayed to the end, you get an extra nice surprise, which is she has a class called the Foundations of Astrology, and it is half price right now, half price. It's only $39. And it's several classes that you can do at your own pace. But you're going to learn astrology in a way that you can help yourself. This is what she was just talking about earlier, right? I really feel like the energy suggests that we have to empower ourselves. We're the ones who've been waiting for. So if you understand, like I just had a transit in my own astrology that literally changed my energy. Like I was like, whew, thank God, I didn't realize it would have that kind of effect on me, but it really has. And if you have that knowledge that you can understand your own birth chart and you can understand, okay, this transit is happening or this is happening. And, I need to just be a little mindful of that, or I'm probably going to get a boost of energy, or, it's really unlocking a treasure chest That's all of your secrets, you know? So for $39, you guys check it out. It's well worth the money. This is a class she's offered before. She's got lots and lots of satisfied students. So this is not a new class. This is something that she's done successfully. And you'll find the link down in the comments or down in the description, along with her YouTube channel and her website. Thank you so much, Dabney. It's really been eye-opening, and I always have to listen to these things again to kind of, hear it again. Sometimes I just have to listen to them twice, right? To get it all.
Yeah. And everything that you're saying here, when I watch your channel, because I watch it pretty religiously, it's echoed in the astrology. So I definitely think we're on the same page. I just have my own way of explaining it and interpreting it through the planets. So I appreciate you giving me this platform to share that with people. And so I do hope I didn't confuse anyone, but I just wanted to give everyone a ray of hope that, it's not over yet. It ain't over.
It's not over yet. It's just beginning. In a lot of ways, we're just beginning. And I love that retrograde energy. Something I learned again, because I learned about myself. For me, this is for all of us, but specifically for me, a lot of times during a Mercury retrograde, people always complain that your computer is going to go out or don't sign anything, or you're going to, this is kind of like the normal things we talk about. We have a Mercury retrograde coming up. You know what I learned? I go back to that project that I got so fed up with that I put it on the back burner. I go back and get that project out. I swear to God, I do. And I'm like, zippity doo dah, it's done.
Mhm.
It's done. It's like something that I use it proactively to help me. So as we're going into all of these retrograde planets, we're going to have a look back, a redo opportunity, not only with Mercury, but I mean, with all of these big planets, these big impactful planets. So really think this fall, maybe you're going to get in your life an opportunity to go back and get something that you really didn't finish. But certainly our leaders are going to have a chance to go back. They may go back. You may see them looking back at things, looking back at court rulings or other things, perhaps even the results, and saying, you know what, this doesn't make sense. Now that I'm looking at it now, it doesn't make sense. And we're going to do more about it. So that's also, I think, something hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely when you're in the final version, the energy sort of dissipates or collapses. And so that's where, everything that we've been under this past decade that's been just exhausting us all, there's kind of this finality to it. And that finality then leads us to the next step. And I, for one, seeing the news headlines today, I felt like that was somewhat optimistic for the first day of Uranus in Gemini. So
Yes.
good sign, good omens.
Good omens. Thank you so much, Dabney. You guys all take care. We'll see you again real soon.
Bye. Thank you.
For entertainment purposes only,